The Democrats are showing that they have really only one thing in their toolbox that they feel like they can use to get their way, and that is threaten a shutdown or create a shutdown. We know that the Department of Homeland Security is currently shut down because of the inability for Democrats to negotiate and come together for the betterment of the country. But now we have Senator Cory Booker, as well as a handful of other Senate Democrats, that are going to shut down the United States Senate over the Iran conflict. They are going to use procedural measures and other things at the disposal of individual senators to stop all the business of the United States Senate until their demands are met. And what are these demands? They want testimony from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, as well as other senior officials to testify before key committees over this military conflict with Iran. Now, I'm actually certain that will happen at some point. I'm certain that these members of the administration will testify before the Senate, before the Armed Services Committee or the Homeland Security Committees, probably in both the Senate and the House, because that's how this works. That's how the oversight of Congress works. But at this point, with their war powers resolution vote failing, they feel like they have to turn to other things to make a name for themselves while U.S. men and women in uniform are conducting this operation in Iran. They want to shut down their branch of government over this. And this is what we're hearing from Senator Booker. It says each individual senator has a tremendous amount of power to disrupt the normal functioning of the Senate, as well as certain privileges that we can exercise. And what we have agreed to now is that we are not going to let the Senate continue business as usual. Now, the Senate already has not been a very speedy process. And to some degree, that's by design. It is the deliberative body. Some call it, at least formally, the world's greatest deliberative body. In recent years, we have seen it not necessarily live up to some of those standards. But what we see now is that the opposition within the U.S. Senate, the Democrat minority, is going to hijack the Senate and make it go at a standstill until they get their way. Also, I feel like many of these members, if they wanted to have these conversations with the Secretary of War, with Secretary Rubio, they could do that. They're very powerful senators, many of them. They could have these conversations and even probably get them to agree to hearings, set this up. But instead, they're choosing publicity stunt route, threatening a shutdown. And then I assume they'll say this is the Republican shutdown of the Senate because we're not getting our way. That's how they play these out with their PR teams and their spin on it. But this is what Senator Booker also said. He said, it is unacceptable. We have not had hearings and we have not had sufficient debate on the issues in public. In hearings, witnesses under oath, this is what we are demanding. You also hear from Senator Chris Murphy, where he said, what we're saying is that we're not going to let the Senate be silent. We want there to be a hearing so that the American public can hear from their leaders why they think this war is in the national interest. I think they'll fail in that exercise. One, there has been no lack of communication from the executive branch. The president is giving press conferences directly to and taking questions, talking directly to the American people. The Secretary of War is giving multiple updates, almost daily, giving updates on what is going on and taking questions from the press. The difference is that when it happens to be a committee, typically what you see is the circus. You see the senators try to hammer down a talking point, many times not even allowing the member or to explain, the person that's testifying, the witness. In this case, it would be cabinet members. We know how this plays out. They will be trying to get their talking point across. They will let them start to answer but cut them off and not allow them to fully testify. So I don't think that they can say that this administration isn't talking to the American people. We have seen them talking nonstop to the American people. Yes, I know that this is an important part of their role of oversight, and I do believe it will and should happen. But the way that they're doing this, of saying we're going to shut down the Senate, they already have one shutdown. The Department of Homeland Security is not funded as we speak. At a time where, and we're going to talk about this more, the U.S. is saying that they're receiving encrypted communication out of Iran that they believe could be activating terrorist cells, sleeper assets around the world. And what have we seen? We have seen panic at airports where the TSA is short-staffed because of the Department of Homeland Security shutdown. We are seeing there be flights diverted. There is already a level of high alert and panic that is taking place. Instead of maybe debating whether or not they should refund Department of Homeland Security, they are more concerned about their 15 minutes of fame during these hearings to be able to do the serious job of questioning cabinet members, of which is a part of their job. I will give that to them. But there's a lot of other business that should be going on at the same time. Maybe if you want people to take you seriously, you should say, we think it's of utmost importance to refund the Department of Homeland Security, but we also want guarantees that we are going to get hearings from these cabinet members. Maybe people would take you more seriously. But I feel like this is going to backfire on these senators. And I'll read you their names again. This is Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. He is the one who introduced that war powers resolution that failed last week. Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin, and of course, Senator Adam Schiff of California. But once again, even the language from Cory Booker saying that we are demanding these hearings, be hearings, debates, and questions answered. It is unacceptable. We have not had hearings. We're 10 days into this. Have you tried to actually work with the committee chairs and work out a path to have these hearings? I understand you can call a hearing pretty quickly, but also understanding that the Secretary of War and the Secretary of State are both in the thick of this right now. You can probably figure this out if you don't want the sound bites on TV and elevate your name status for, I don't know, maybe a potential attempt at being president again, Senator Booker. Is that the plan here? Because all of this just seems so disingenuous to me, that they are going to shut down the business of the Senate for hearings at the same time that they currently are holding the Department of Homeland Security in a shutdown perpetually. Now they've even seen that the Secretary of Homeland Security has been reassigned, and there will be another one. Are they going to wait and hold up a nomination to lead that very important part of the executive branch while we are in a heightened security risk scenario? These are the questions I want to know from the senators. I know they have their questions they want answered from the members of the executive branch, but the people who elect these senators that are supposed to be representatives of their states, of the people that elect them and send them to Congress, where are those questions? Why aren't you working on refunding Homeland Security? Even if you want reforms, why are you not working towards that? Instead, you're just keeping it shut down. Your war powers resolution already failed. You weren't able to stop this conflict. So during that, maybe work for the betterment of the country instead of what you're doing right now. And that is trying to do another political stunt of shutting down now the Senate. People already complain that Congress isn't effective enough. Do you think this is adding to your credibility, senators? When you are saying, you know what? We're going to exercise our authority and our privileges, and we are going to shut this down. But I also think it's so rich when someone like Adam Schiff is a part of this group, obviously trying to make a name for himself. He was on Real Time with Bill Maher, and this was just a couple days ago. And I want you to hear this bite because of how unserious many of these Democrat senators are. This is Bill Maher asking him a question about conflict from the executive branch. This is bite 20. Just listen to the response from Adam Schiff. Let's roll it.
This statement from the administration: the president had the constitutional authority to direct the use of military force because he could reasonably determine that such use of force was in the national interest. That's too vague for you?
Totally vague.
Okay, because that's from Obama about Libya.
The gotcha question there from Bill Maher is not lost on anyone because it is so partisan. It's because it's President Trump. It's because it's Secretary Rubio and Secretary Hegseth that are conducting this. When it was Libya, no one had a problem in their party with the operation that was taking place under the War Powers Act. And it was sold to the Congress at the time, the American people, that he had constitutional authority to use the military force because he could reasonably determine that such use of force was in the national interest. That is the prerogative of the president. And now that it's not a president that they voted for or that they support, they're going to shut down branches of government. They're going to shut down their own job because they don't like who it is. This is why they don't get the conversations that they're looking for, because they are presenting themselves in such an unserious way. But they may be unserious in their methods, but it is gravely serious to the United States. And so I think they should be called out for these tactics, these antics.